Every day, something dramatic happens in the Caribbean that affects our lives. We'll give you the details. We'll give you the facts on Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. Host Eddie Frederick.
So glad you can join us. St. Kitts and Nevis' new Prime Minister speaks like a visionary about the future of his country. This story takes the lead in today's edition of Caribbean Perspective for Wednesday, 9th November 2022. Details when we return.
The hurricane season is now upon us, so we as Caribbean people need to remember to think safety and be prepared. Avoid venturing outside during a storm or hurricane, especially if there are strong winds. Rooftops and other debris are often blown about and can cause great damage.
Welcome back. St. Kitts and Nevis' Prime Minister talks about the economy and needed action. Glenn Bart of SKN Newsline has some details.
The government of St. Kitts and Nevis intends to fast-track its diversification program to reduce its overdependence on the Citizenship by Investment program. Disclosing a current overall financial deficit, Prime Minister Dr. Terence Drew, who is also the Minister of Finance, said several statutory corporations, inclusive of SCEREC and SCASPER, are financially challenged. The Finance Minister indicated that mismanagement and corrupt practices in some cases contributed to the overall poor financial performance, and the overdependence on the Citizenship by Investment program puts the economy in a vulnerable position.
50 to 60% of our economy is dependent on CBI. What does that mean? It means, Ike, that we are very vulnerable. It's a very fragile industry. It is even more fragile than tourism, as I can say here today. There was hardly any diversification in the economy. It was if, you collect money through the CBI and you just did what you wanted to do with it. And so that has put us in a very vulnerable state that we have to quickly start to work on to get out of. Because all these social programs I talk about, that they are worth over $100 and something million per year. It means, therefore, that we have become so dependent on the CBI program that if that program is affected in any way, and that is why I say we have to move to strengthen it. But while we are strengthening it, we have to diversify the economy. And that is why we are looking at what we will call the sustainable island state, where we have to diversify our economy, but of course doing that in a sustainable way, where we can have more energy. We don't have enough energy in St. Kitts and Nevis. Electricity right now is on a knife's edge. We don't have water, Ike. How many people can't have 24 hours of water? Just recently, we know what happened in Upper Monkey Hill. We know what is happening into Keon and other areas. So the very basics that are needed to really push the country forward are missing.
Dr. Drew said information will be revealed regarding management practices under the previous administration, but the country needs now to pursue a different strategy.
More information will be revealed of corrupt practices, wastage of money, and lack of innovation and ideas of how to diversify our economy. And that is why we are putting forward, and our budget will be focused on the sustainable island state, where we will seek to resolve a number of these issues and creating a foundation that is strong to propel us forward, Ike. That is why I have put an economic team together, and we met even up to yesterday with, of course, persons from National Bank, Social Security, Development Bank, Inland Revenue, Treasury, Ministry of Finance. We had a consultant there who represented the data that were collected from St. Kitts and Nevis, and we had other persons there as well. And that team, that meeting was chaired by the FS, and we looked at where we are in St. Kitts and Nevis. We saw that we are down in areas while we have gone up in spending, depending too much on the CBI program. And over these last 7 years, no knew anything to propel the economy forward. Nothing at all, except to become more dependent on the CBI program, which is very fragile, and we definitely cannot continue that. EK, I want to say, since we got in, I put that economic team and they continue to work as we chart new pathways and we chart to develop this economy and sound principles.
The Minister of Finance made his remarks when he was a guest on a popular radio talk show on Freedom FM. Glenn Bart reporting for SKN Newsline.
While the recovery of the Jamaican economy from the COVID-19 pandemic has been well publicized, with an expected return to pre-COVID levels projected for next year, what has been more difficult to contemplate has been the impact on life expectancy. Joel Crossgill of CVM Live reports.
Former Governor of the Central Bank of Barbados, Delal Warrell, has been analyzing the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on Latin America and the Caribbean, with a particular focus on mortality rates.
More alarming than the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on national income was the fall in life expectancy at birth for a majority of countries in the Central American and Caribbean region as a result of the rise in death rates. There were just 4 countries where life expectancy rose between 2019 and 2021, thanks to the fact that they recorded relatively few COVID-related deaths.
The magnitude of the global impact of the pandemic is reflected in the fact that the average life expectancy worldwide fell by 2.3%. The Latin American and Caribbean region were among the most impacted.
The wider Latin American region includes countries which recorded among the world's highest death rates from COVID, depressing the average life expectancy for the wider region, including the Caribbean, by as much as 3.9%, 70% worse than the world average. The other countries in the region where the fall in life expectancy was less severe than the world average were the Dominican Republic, Haiti, Trinidad and Tobago, Jamaica, and Panama.
The central banker surmises that there is a need for further investigation into the reason behind the observed results.
We would expect that the quality and accessibility of health services would have a bearing on the outcomes, and the favorable results for the Bahamas, Barbados, and St. Kitts Nevis are consistent with this. However, Cuba, with one of the most envied health services in Latin America and the Caribbean, had among the worst losses in life expectancy.
You're listening to Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick.
Joel Crossgill, CVM Live.
The Prisons Officers Association of Trinidad and Tobago is expressing surprise that there will be no conciliatory talks with the CPO over the government's 4% wage increase offer. Meanwhile, the Public Services Association says the government seems determined to have the matter heard before the Industrial Court. TV6's Jewel Brown reports.
Sir Richards, the president of the Prisons Officers Association, speaking outside of the Industrial Court after a case management hearing before the Special Tribunal, Sir Richards, the president of the Prisons Officers Association, spoke on its behalf about the decision that there will be no conciliation talks over the Chief Personnel Officer's 4% salary increase offer for particular collective bargaining periods from 2014 to 2019.
It is very surprising and very disheartening that we have reached here and the government taking that strong position that there will be no conciliation and they want this matter go to trial. Given the fact that all of our members are sitting on 2013 salaries, 2014 salaries, and they have been turning the toil, they have been working, they have been doing exceptional, trying their best, right, to advance the interests of the state. And we are in a position where we believe that we are robbed that opportunity to bring some sort of finality to this issue.
In winding up the budget debate, the Finance Minister had announced that the Prisons Officers Association, the PSA, and the unions representing police officers and teachers were referred to the Industrial Court's Special Tribunal. However, the Finance Minister said any one of those unions can ask for conciliation outside of the formal proceedings of the tribunal. Mr. Richards said the Prisons Officers Association's matter concerning the CPO's 4% offer will be heard on March 14th of next year. Leroy Batiste, the president of the Public Services Association, said the PSA's matter before the Industrial Court will be heard on January 19th of next year.
We have, in fact, engaged in sidebar discussions and we have been able to close gaps. But for whatever reason, the state feel it's to some leverage to have the matter done at the Industrial Court. And we feel it unfortunate because it undermines this whole framework. And in the interim, public officers are suffering under the weight of the cost of living.
Jewel Brown, TV6 News.
New United Nations Executive Secretary on Climate Change did not hold back in his address to UN Conference on Climate Change 2022 COP27.
As the United Nations Climate Change Conference COP27 gets underway in Egypt, an alarm is being sounded for countries to implement their climate pledges. Executive Secretary of the UN Climate Change Committee, Simon Steele, said, among other things, developed countries should help vulnerable countries fight the climate crisis by providing access to finance. A grand opening of the UN COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt. From the pyramids to the conference room, the mood was cheerful. But outside the glitz and glamour, the business of the day. Executive Secretary of the UN Climate Change Committee, Simon Steele, did not hold back as he called on countries to act.
We must demonstrate this transformational shift to implementation, putting negotiations into concrete actions. Every corner of human activity must align with our Paris commitment of pursuing efforts to limit temperature rise to 1.5 degrees.
The Climate Change Conference is an annual meeting of over 190 countries to decide on how to limit the effects of climate change, especially global temperature rise. While developing countries like Jamaica are not among the biggest contributors to the changing climate, they stand to face the worst impacts. And already, we have been seeing the devastating effects of climate change in the island, from longer dry spells to more tropical storms and hurricanes. It is hoped that developing nations like Jamaica will benefit from a new financial package from COP27 to deal with loss and damage from devastating natural disasters.
There are those who just need a nudge into taking further action to go beyond business as usual. There are others who need support so they are able to do the things they need to do for their countries and communities, specifically highly vulnerable nations. And then there are those who still refuse to act unless others do. They will not be allowed to slow down the collective process.
Meanwhile, CEO of the Jamaica Environment Trust, Dr. Teresa Rodriguez Moody, is hoping that COP27 will not be another talk shop.
We cannot continue to put profits first. We cannot continue to put economy first, because our environment, our lives, our livelihood is so linked with the environment, is so linked with climate and climate change impacts. And so I would like to see that is put first.
COP27 will end on November 18, and Jamaica is among the countries expected to make presentations at the conference.
Hubbard's is once again innovating the way you shop with its new online store, providing 24-hour shopping convenience. You can shop now for appliances, hardware, houseware, building material, and more. Free delivery island-wide. Start shopping now at hubbardshardware.gd. Safe, convenient, reliable.
I am Eddie Frederick, wishing you a restful weekend. This has been Caribbean Perspective, a whole new approach to highlighting developments in the Caribbean. In the meantime, please continue to log on to CaribbeanPerspective.com for more daily news and more.